Hey guys, this is Ned from TGN.TV, and I'd like to welcome you to the second part of the series Invincible, following the life of Arthas Menethil. If you haven't yet seen part 1, please click on the link on the screen now, otherwise I'm afraid this won't make much sense to you. But if you are ready to continue with the story, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Our story now takes a sudden turn. Arthas, now a young paladin, defends Lordaeron with his faith and might. But soon, the ultimate test will begin. Whispers of a sleeping monster, a frigid wind from the north. Soon, our champion and his kingdom will be put to the test. The rise of the Lich King has begun. Not long after Arthas was accepted into the Knights of the Silver Hand, troubles began to stir in Lordaeron. Orcs had begun to rebel and break free in their internment camps, and whispers of a plague in the Northlands had reached the heart of the kingdom. Arthas and Uther travelled to Starnbrad, where orcs were attacking in a town. Arthas single-handedly killed the Orc Blades Master who was leading the raids, with an artifact crafted from a black dragon's heart. But a more vile threat was emerging. A plague of undeath had been sweeping the lands in the north of Lordaeron, mysteriously wiping out entire towns and villages. Arthas joined forces with Captain Falric and Jaina Proudmoore. Arthas had once had a romantic relationship with Jaina, but had cut it short so that he could best serve the Silver Hand, and she could return to her magical studies in Dalaran, home of the mages. After searching the Northlands, they fought an undead army at a plague-infested granary. It is here they found the necromancer Kel'Thuzad in the town of Brill. Kel escaped, but the heroes pursued him to Anderhall, in the mountains south of Brill. Kel'Thuzad had already infested the grain Anderhall with the plague, and had shipped it to the outlying villages, but he was now trapped by Arthas, Jaina, and Falric. With no escape, Kel'Thuzad told the heroes about a demon leading the Scourge, known as Mal'Ganis, who was moving his forces to the city of Stratholme, in northern Lordaeron. Arthas then killed the necromancer, leaving his body to rot in the mud, and set off for Stratholme. Little did he realise, but he was walking straight into a trap. Along the way, Arthas and Jaina stopped at Hearthglen, where they hoped to rest, but word reached them of an approaching undead army. Arthas ordered Jaina to seek out Uther, while he stayed to defend Hearthglen. It was there he saw the undead kill the townsfolk, who then rose again as ghouls and zombies, and joined the ranks of the dead. To his horror, Arthas realised that this was the fate of any who suffered the plague, and his own forces were nearly defeated, but Uther came at the last moment and saved them and the village. With the village saved, Arthas, Uther and Jaina made their way to Stratholme. On the way, they met the mysterious prophet Medivh, who told Arthas to travel west into the forgotten lands of Kalimdor. Arthas refused, telling the prophet that his place was with his people and he would not abandon them. Jaina suggested that the prophet might be right, but Arthas ignored her and continued on to Stratholme. When Arthas arrived in Stratholme, he found that the grain was all over the city and the villagers would soon become undead. With rage in his eyes, he ordered Uther and his knights to purge the city and kill everyone inside it. The horrified Uther rebuked him by saying that he would not follow that command even if Arthas was king. Arthas declared Uther and his knights traitors and disbanded the Order of the Silver Hand right there, right then. The prince watched his mentor, friends and allies turn and walk away. Jaina told him she could not stand to watch and left with Uther. The few guards that remained loyal to the prince joined him in slaughtering the townsfolk. As he killed the citizens of Stratholme, Mal'Ganis appeared to Arthas and told him he was too late and he would personally claim the souls of all the townsfolk. Arthas decimated all who stood in his path. Women, children and everyone died before Mal'Ganis could get to them. Arthas then cornered the demon and prepared to strike the killing blow, but just before he could, Mal'Ganis told the prince that if he wanted to kill him, he had to travel to the Arctic wastes of Northrend. Then the demon disappeared. Arthas vowed to hunt the demon and destroy him. Rage filled his heart that would soon consume him. Before he left, he set fire to Stratholme and set off on the cold and lonely road he would soon find himself. The fires burn to this day. Arthas and a detachment of troops set off for Northrend on Lordaeron's ships. Approximately 1 month after Stratholme, they arrived on the freezing continent. Arthas' men began looking for a place to set up camp in the mind-numbing cold. To their surprise, they were discovered by the Dwarven Explorers Guild, and Arthas was shocked to see his old friend and mentor, Moradin Bronzebeard. The dwarves had been searching for the runeblade Frostmourne, which was said to have powers beyond imagining. and had become stranded on the continent and were being hunted by the undead. Arthas realised a blade could be the key to destroying the undead and agreed to help Moradin, though his main objective was still to kill Mal'Ganis, and together they destroyed the nearby undead camp, but there was no sign of the demon. As the prince and dwarf set out to find Frostmourne, an emissary from Lordaeron arrived in a zeppelin and spoke to the captain of the troops, bearing orders from King Tyrannus and Uther, instructing Arthas and his men to return home immediately. When Arthas and Moradin returned, the men had abandoned their posts and began marching towards the ships. Arthas refused to leave before Mal'Ganis was destroyed, and with the help of some indigenous mercenaries, he set fire to the boats before his men got to them. When the men arrived, Arthas betrayed the mercenaries, accusing them of destroying the ships, and the captain had them all killed, much to the disgust of Moradin. Arthas told his men that they had no means to go home, and the only way they would leave the icy north was through victory against Mal'Ganis and the undead scourge. On a glacier, far to the north, a being of immense power was watching Arthas' every move. The trap was working perfectly, and soon his plan would be set in motion. A frigid wind blew through the frozen wastes. As Arthas and his troops pressed on to find Frostmourne, which Arthas told himself was the only means of destroying Mal'Ganis, the demon appeared before him and told Arthas that he would soon die, before once again disappearing. Arthas and Moradin then came across an ancient waygate, which they used to travel to the cavern where Frostmourne lay. It was here they were confronted by an elemental guardian who tried to keep Arthas from Frostmourne for the prince's own protection. Arthas slaughtered the guardian and went on into the depths of the cave. Frostmourne sat in front of them. Ominous eyes glared from the blade's hilt. Moradin leaned forward to study the sword and found an inscription running down the blade. Whomsoever takes up this blade shall wield power eternal. Just as the blade rends flesh, so must power scar the spirit. Moradin realised the horror. It was all a trick, and the blade was cursed. He said to Arthas, "Forget this business, and lead your men home." But Arthas was adamant that the blade would save them. He told Moradin he would pay any price if he could save his people. He thrust down his mace and grabbed Frostmourne's hilt and pulled it free from the ice. A shard struck Moradin in the chest, and he collapsed. Arthas heard a whispering voice in his head. He did not know what it was, but it told him to head to the place where Mal'Ganis resided. He wandered onto the frozen wastes, Frostmourne in hand, leaving Moradin for dead. He killed the minions of Mal'Ganis and confronted the demon. Mal'Ganis told him that the voice he could now hear was that of the Lich King, a being granted immense power but locked within a prison known as the Frozen Throne, and was the true ruler of the Scourge, who had command over the dead. He also told the prince that the blade Frostmourne was designed to absorb souls, and Arthas was the first that it had claimed. The Lich King then told Arthas to kill the demon, and Arthas told Mal'Ganis what he had heard. The shocked demon watched as Frostmourne was thrust through his chest, and Mal'Ganis was defeated. The Lich King told Arthas to return to his camp and kill his troops. The men greeted him like a hero, and Arthas run commanders Falric and Marwyn through with Frostmourne. He then proceeded to wipe out everyone in the encampment. No one survived. The Lich King told Arthas that the demons had enslaved him and forced him to do their will, but Arthas had freed him from their grasp and was his champion. Arthas would obey without question and do the Lich King's bidding. He would have command over death itself. He was a Death Knight. Frostmourne glowed cold blue, blood along the hilt, grinning at the souls it had devoured. Some would say that Arthas was forced to obey the Lich King, others that he chose the path willingly, but it did not matter. The Lich King's cold eyes were fixed upon his new champion. He moved his undead minions strategically around the continent, wiping out the remaining demons who sought to control him. Arthas disappeared into the snow. A champion had fallen. The world would quake at what was about to be unleashed. The moment Arthas touched Frostmourne, he had died. His heart stopped beating, and the will of the Lich King kept him alive. Arthas was now invincible, and the reign of the tyrant had begun.